Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Hallmarkies podcast. And we're really excited today for this ranking episode. We are getting our AARP memberships. we're talking, we're talking old people movies. It's gonna be so fun. We have a lot of senior citizen fans of the podcast, and we love them so much. So this should give y'all like tons of great movies to watch that will really speak to you and that are just so good for any age to watch. It was
Absolutely.
really fun this was, to me at least, this was one of the hardest rankings because I have a lot of favorite old people movies.
I know. It's my favorite genre since I was a kid.
Yeah, me too.
And I'm dangerously close to AR. I've been getting letters in the mail to join it since I was 9. That's not a lie. Like I was like,
Yeah, yeah.
okay. Uh,
Well, it really has been always been a favorite of mine because I was very, very close to particularly my grandfather on my mom's side and my grandmother on my dad's side. Uh, they were like two of my best friends, and I miss them so much. I miss all my grandparents, but particularly those two I was especially close to. And so anything that kind of taps into that bond,
I
I
always had
really love.
I always had a lot of older friends. Just think of,
Hmm.
I wouldn't say spry, but young me in early 20s and out having an adventure in California. And I am hanging out with the 60 plus year old crowd,
Yeah, yeah.
having the time of my life, by the way,
Hmm.
meeting very interesting people. But it
You're
was,
like you're like
yeah.
Jennifer Lopez in Wedding Planner. She's playing Scrabble with the old people. I'm like, I really don't think that Jennifer Lopez would be doing that on a Friday night, but
Not
who
then and not
knows?
today,
Who
no.
knows?
Um, yes, but it's just
I don't think she'd have a hard time finding dates. I just don't.
no.
but but yeah, so we have our short list of different movies that we're going off of that I'll put a link down. So if you want to make your own ranking, and then just make sure to tag us, whether it's in a blog or on social media or in a video or podcast. We'd love that. So tag us, let us know. Also have our patron bonus 3 picks, which are really fun. Some really good movies. So you should definitely join the Patreon, get tons of bonus episodes, tons of great content, and you get to support the pod as well. So please take a look at that. And let's dive in. Let's do it. Terry, what is your first pick?
I picked the most recent iteration of Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris
Mm,
with Leslie Manville.
good pick.
I just think it's just such a sweet story. I mean, like Mrs. Harris is just like she's a housekeeper, she's widowed, and all she wants is a fancy dress, you know? It's she doesn't have big dreams and she gets a chance and she's like, I'm gonna do it. And she goes to Paris and she gets it done and she has like an adventure and it's like wonderful. And I love Leslie Manfield. And I just think that the whole premise of it is quite wonderful. And then like sort of the twist of what happens with the dress and then whatnot. It's just a very
Mm,
delightful
yeah.
story, and the whole cast is great.
Mm,
And it's like you never give up on your dreams because you never know when it can happen.
yeah.
Even the simplest thing of having like, uh, a fancy, really expensive French dress, it can happen.
Yeah.
And she works
Yeah.
hard for
That was
it.
it really is a good little
It's very
movie.
sweet,
Very
wonderful
sweet.
costumes too,
Hmm.
which it got
Oh, yeah.
nominated for an Oscar for, rightfully
Hmm.
so. And so
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
very I don't know if many people watched it, and I do know that I think the original movie had Angela Lansbury in it.
Yeah. I think the original was a
It
TV
was a
movie,
TV movie, yeah.
if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, because I know this is based on a book as well, so it's been done before, but um now I kind of want to track down to see how Angela Lansbury
Hmm. Hmm.
takes on this role.
Well, my number 12 is little bit of a kind of weird pick. People might not think about it, but I think it totally counts. It's from Hayao Miyazaki. It is Howl's Moving Castle.
Mm.
And in this anime film, it's based on a book, but I heard loosely. But anyway, it's about this girl who gets a curse put on her where she turns into a 90-year-old woman. And this but then what she kind of has to go through to break the curse, her relationship with this wizard named Howl and his castle, obviously. And it's delightful, it's funny, it's emotional. Of course, the animation's incredible. Sophie is such an endearing character. And one thing that Miyazaki is so excellent about doing is creating particularly young female characters that are easy to root for and that have like a significant character arc, whether it be Chihiro in Spirited Away, whether it be Kiki in Kiki's Delivery Service, Sophie in Howl's Moving Castle. He makes these young women who grow and have emotion, that he gives these young women a very like emotionally true journey that makes them very easy to connect with. And here you have Sophie dealing with all of a sudden like being this old woman, and how does she feel about that? And so ironically, it would probably be in my lower end of Miyazaki rankings, but I think that just shows how strong of a filmmaker he is and how incredible. Like, I mean, he just had like one masterpiece after another. and but this one still is absolutely beautiful, and I do love Sophie as a character. I think she's wonderful.
Yeah, I think this was the first film of his I ever saw.
Mm.
Howl's Moving Castle. And I think it was nominated, right, for the
Oh
an
yeah,
Oscar. Yeah,
yeah,
for the but yeah, I mean it's very I had forgotten about this one. It's beautifully done though.
yeah. I wonder what won that year. I think it was once a Pixar. I think it was probably Wall-E or something. He's won twice
And with an honorary
for
award
Spirited
and
Away, and then of course just recently. Oh, you're right. It was 2005. It was up
no, yeah,
against.
go ahead.
It was up
Yeah.
against. It was. This was an interesting year, 2005, because all three selections were. I mean, none of the selections were CG computer animated. There was Wallace and Gromit, Curse of the Were Rabbit, which is stop motion, Corpse
Yeah.
Bride, which is stop motion, Hell's Moving Castle, which is 2D. So that'll probably never happen again.
Before no, because it's become now so in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's a trend now.
But yeah, strong year, and
Mhm.
certainly don't ever resent Aardman winning. That's always good.
No.
But anyway, he was up. But anyway, he won last year for The Boy and the Heron,
Oh,
which
that's right. Yes.
was another very very strong year for animation, in my opinion. So
He
way to
should have
go.
more awards though. And I know he's got an honorary one as well, but
Yeah, I mean, he definitely
unbelievable.
should have more.
Yeah.
I mean, and I
It is sometimes it is on a tangent here, but sometimes when you hear about the animated movies, you're like, huh, like this made it in and
well,
that doesn't.
yeah. Well, and part of the problem too is that the animated Oscar category can be somewhat of a cop out because
Mm,
then they don't have to nominate it for Best Picture.
right,
And
exactly.
it's like, oh well, we'll just include it in the best
I mean, wasn't it? It was
animated.
brought about too, so they wouldn't get animated features in the best picture.
Because I think that it's crazy that like something like Into the Spider-Verse didn't get nominated for Best Picture. That was definitely one of the best pictures
Especially
that
when you
year.
have now up to 10 nominees. You
Yeah,
can get up to 10
absolutely.
nominees. So,
Yeah. Anyway, that is the situation. I mean, I probably would have also nominated Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. I probably would have nominated that year as one of the 10. But
yeah.
that's just
But look
me.
at, I mean, he won one. So, well, I was going to say he
Yeah.
finally won one, but he won for The Shape of Water as well. I almost forgot about that one.
Well, so that's my pick. I think
Excuse me.
Howl's Moving Castle is a beautiful
Delightful.
movie. If you
Yeah.
haven't seen it, it's I would say it's a pretty accessible anime as far
He,
as like it's not it has some fantasy like Spirited Away, but it's not nearly as like madcap and kind of crazy as Spirited Away.
let me
So
ask you a question here when it comes to anime. Do you, because this is how I feel when I watch
uh-huh,
international films, foreign films. Do you
uh-huh.
watch it in its original language with subtitles or do you listen to the English dub? Which do you think
I
is like more
always
authentic?
I would always prefer the subtitle over the
Hmm.
dub,
Yeah.
but the especially that period where Disney was doing the dubs,
Oh yes, yeah.
were like so good, like
Yeah, Christian
perfect.
Bale does the voice, right? In Howl's Moving Castle. Yeah,
Yeah, and Billy Crystal is the
yeah,
calcifer.
yes.
I think that some people can be pretty snobby, about, oh,
Hmm.
I gotta watch the sub, not the dub. I would just want you to watch anime. And if and
Yeah.
if
It's a
you know
little bit
if
different when it
watching
comes to animation, though, I think.
if watching the dub gets you there, gets you to
Yeah,
watch it, then I'm happy.
yeah,
I would always prefer, particularly in something like Your Name, where there's a big musical element, because I think that makes a big difference to me,
yeah.
because it's just not the same, the music.
Yes.
So I would always watch the sub versus the dub, but I think that the dub is like 99% is good. Like, you're talking about little differences for the most part. There's some bad dubs, particularly for things like some of those Pokemon movies or things like that.
I
There's some bad
know.
dubs, but for anything Studio Ghibli,
Yeah.
uh, most of the Makoto Shinkai movies, like Your Name, has like a really good dub. Things like that. You're it's fine. It's fine. Yeah.
Well, I think it might be different too with animation too. Like if
Yeah.
you're watching like a live action movie, sometimes it's
Yeah.
better to just like you have those atrocious dubs and you're like,
Oh,
this is not
yeah.
conveying anything that the actor is doing, you know?
The other day, I
So
didn't even realize that I had the dub on when I was watching Netflix, and I started this
Netflix
foreign
is the
rom com,
worst.
and I was like, "What is going on? Why do they sound like that? What is this?
Netflix is the
Why isn't
worst.
why is there why is all the ADR so bad in this movie?" Like, and then I'm like, "Oh, it's because I have the horrible dub on." I didn't know that I
Netflix is the
did.
worst with their dubs
Yeah, it's
and the
so
worst
bad.
with their subtitles. The worst with their subtitles because,
Oh.
you know,
See, I don't
it's like,
speak the other languages, so I don't know that the subtitles are
I
bad.
know. You watch a Turkish
But I've
movie there,
heard
you got to
that. I've
pay
heard
like
that.
close attention with those subtitles. They like fly off the screen. I was like, and they're so small and they place them in where I was like, Netflix, fix this.
Yeah. And then when they do them in white as opposed to yellow, like, they should always do them in yellow, because it's hard to see when they're in the white a lot of
My
times,
sister makes
I
a
think.
case that if you have something like 70 millimeter or however it's presented, she's like, just put the words on the black bar
Yeah.
because,
Yeah, it's
it
true.
won't distract you. Because I
Yeah.
know that sometimes people, when you first get into reading subtitles, I've been doing it for years. But you're sometimes you miss stuff because you get distracted reading.
Hmm.
And if they're
Hmm.
flying by at the speed of light like Netflix does, you miss a lot.
Yeah,
But
true.
eventually your eye catches up and
Yeah.
everything goes. But Netflix is the worst with their dubs are horrendous.
Yeah.
I never watch
They
anything.
really are so bad. I
They
was like,
are,
what is happening? So thankfully you can turn them off.
oh my gosh, they are horrendous.
Well, what?
It's a crime.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah. Well, what do you have next?
I have the Up. I put
Mm-hmm.
Pixar's Up because man, it's just beautifully animated. It's a
Oh,
beautiful story of like just don't give up and you can still fulfill that dream. The first 10 minutes or
oh.
so of that movie is like you have a full mini movie right before the movies get started. It's so heartbreaking. When people say it makes
Mm,
you cry, it's true. They're not exaggerating. It's
no.
like so I wasn't prepared for that. And I was like, what's going on?
I have it
No.
much higher.
Yeah.
It is a favorite of mine, a favorite
Yeah.
movie of mine. And partly it's because I was so close to my grandfather, as I mentioned, my grandpa. And he wasn't grumpy like Carl, but for some reason the character just still reminds me of him. And I just love the whole theme of like regret and
Regret. Yeah,
loss,
that life
and like
got
forgiving yourself, and
because life got so in the way they couldn't live the dream,
yeah, and he lives with this feeling of he didn't give Ellie the life that
life.
he had promised, and he has
Yeah.
that weight on him. And that's what makes the ending, I think, practically as moving as the beginning, because when he finds that in that note, in the book, go on and have another
Yeah.
adventure, and so then he goes and he has this whole new life, and he can finally forgive himself, and it's just, oh, it's so beautiful.
It's so
I love
sweet.
it
And like
so much.
he had a right to be grumpy. They were trying to take his house.
Yeah.
Like, but I mean, in the beginning opening, you see when they're doing the nursery and then there's not. And you're like, why,
Oh.
Pixar? Why? Why did you do this to me? You know, it
Well,
really gets you.
my next one is a really cute little movie that I think we forget that is Ron Howard directed film. I have Cocoon.
Oh, I have that up higher because of
Yeah.
the nostalgia, of it. Yeah, it's delightful.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to rewatch it, but it's I feel like it's just been kind of forgotten, you know? I feel like you
I
don't
think
ever
so. I
really
think,
talked about.
yeah, like it's true. As the years go by, like when I was a kid and in the 90s, like people just loved how like Cocoon is and these aliens come. It's weird, but it's like these older
Yeah.
people get to like be young again and they live vicariously and it's like not over. They still have life to give.
Hmm.
It's a wonderful cast.
Yeah.
It's I don't know. I have it higher because of the nostalgia I have of this movie, but I find it so sweet. What a
Yeah.
cast that they do have.
They really do. Yeah. Well, what do you have next?
So I have About Schmidt with Jack
Oh, I've never
Nicholson.
seen this.
Oh yeah, so this movie though. I think he's very good in it, Jack Nicholson. He's retired. His wife has just passed away, and he's estranged from his daughter, and he's kind of just living in an empty house, trying to figure out what to do. He's depressed. He's going over his. If I'm not mistaken, I think June Squibb plays his wife. Like you don't really see her, but I think there's a picture of her. I could be wrong about that. But he cries, he misses his wife, he holds her things. He finds like all these old letters and he's reminiscing and he finds out his wife had an affair and he's like, what was happening? And it upends his life that he decides to like sell his stuff, get an RV, and sort of like a road travel movie to his estranged daughter's wedding to make it up to her. And he encounters a whole bunch of people. I remember this movie had a lot of talk because Kathy Bates was like naked in it. Like she gets in the hot tub and tries to seduce Jack Nicholson, and he's like, "Oh, I don't know what to do here. What's going on?" It's very funny. She's very good in it as well. And yeah, there was a time, believe it or not, in the media where, like, if an old person or a person of a certain age got naked, it was all over the place because people couldn't believe it. And I was like, okay, older people are naked all the time. This is not news.
Yeah.
But um, I think it's a very, he sort of rediscovers himself, reawakens that his life isn't done. He's got another chapter and he really wants to make it up with his daughter and start fresh with her. So it's like a reawakening that one chapter of your life is over, but your life still is not over. You still have a chance to live it and discover new things and make up for past grievances. So
Yeah, in fact, Kathy Bates, she was nominated for Oscar for
yes, she
this.
was. Yeah, she's
Yeah.
great in this
And
movie.
Jack Nicholson.
And when she like, because he's in I don't know if it's a hot tub or a jacuzzi. She comes up and she just takes her robe off. She goes, "Mind if I join you in?" And he's flabbergasted because he's like, "Wait, what's going on here?" And she's very upfront.
Yeah,
She
yeah.
gives a great performance in that movie. I
I
think,
believe it. I love Alexander Payne.
yeah,
I've liked every single movie of his I've seen. I haven't seen that one, but
yeah.
I've liked.
Ho, ho, ho! We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies Patreon.
Do you love Hallmarkies podcast, especially at Christmas?
Do you enjoy the holiday previews, recaps, interviews, and bonus episodes?
If the answer is yes, please consider supporting the Hallmarkies Patreon. We need your help to do what we do both during the Christmas season and all year round.
But not only do you help a podcast led by strong, independent women by becoming a Patreon, you get to become a part of the Hallmarkies family.
Starting at only $2 a month as a patron, you will have access to our Facebook Patreon group where we talk about the movies, shows, and more all year.
We also have many monthly patron watch-alongs with guests like Lacey Chabert, Natalie Hall, Paul Campbell, Mary Lou Henner, and more, giving their behind-the-scenes details of their films.
As a patron, you also have the chance to provide input into the podcast and even join us at different tiers.
So this Christmas season, spread some cheer to the Hallmarkies Patreon and become a member today. You won't regret it.
Go to patreon.com/hallmarkies to learn more.
That's patreon.com/hallmarkies.
Well, for my next pick, I cheated. I have a three-part tie. in old people documentaries, because old people have made a lot of really great documentaries because you have a lot to talk about because you lived your life, right?
Absolutely.
There's a lot of great ones. And the three that I love the most is Faces, Places, Young at Heart, and Dick Johnson is Dead. And Faces, Places, it follows Agnes Varda, great filmmaker, legendary Agnes Varda. And she was in her 90s,
I believe
80s,
so, yeah.
something like that. Anyway, so she's paired with this like, what do they call it? Installation artist that does these huge murals on buildings and walls and things named JR. And it's like a road trip movie as they go around France and they make these murals for people. And like they do one like outside a factory, celebrating just the workers and making them feel good, and but it's really more about like the art is whatever, but like it's really about just this relationship between this wonderful human of Agnes Varda and this younger person. And she's
Yes.
so adorable. And I'll never forgive the Academy for picking the Olympics doping movie
Oh
over,
man,
like,
yeah.
what on
Especially because
earth?
Agnes Varda died a couple, like, not too long
Months,
after
yeah,
that.
like a couple
Yeah.
months later, they could have. I mean,
Ugh,
the documentary category of the Academy is by
is
far
wild.
the
Is wild.
worst. The
Is
worst.
worse.
They have time and again failed to even nominate or recognize the the best of the genre. Filmmakers like Errol Morris and
And the documentaries that they omit, that I wonder how big that branch is.
the mains and like
Had to be a
Grey
smaller
Gardens and
set
things
of a
like, like
branch.
things that actually the things that actually made like an impact,
Right. Nope.
and that tried something different, Hoop Dreams, things like that. I mean, it's
Or the Mr.
ridiculous.
Rogers. They didn't even give the documentary for Mr. Rogers like a
Yeah, ridiculous.
and I cried during that one.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So, but Faces, Places is absolutely delightful. Young at Heart is also delightful. It's about this group of senior citizens that form this choir, and they go around and they perform like rock songs,
Yes.
Aerosmith and things like that.
Awesome.
And it's so charming. It's so fun. You should check it out. And then the last one is Dick Johnson is Dead. And this is on Netflix. It's director Kirsten Johnson. She does this documentary about her father, Dick Johnson, and basically kind of processes what it'll be like to lose her father. And he's starting to lose his memory. And she does these kind of reenactments where she imagines the different ways that he could die.
Horrifically dying, yeah, in some
Yeah, yeah, but it's
instances,
actually
yeah.
like really sweet and lovely and thoughtful, and I will always have, I mean, I loved the movie, but it was one of the best panels I've ever been to at Sundance was
Yeah.
Kirsten Johnson's panel. She is anyway, Kirsten Johnson, I always have a special place in my heart for her because was one of the best panelists I've ever seen at Sundance. So we watched the movie and she was just so funny. And of course, Dick Johnson was there, her dad, and so we all got to kind of cheer him on. And she was just so good at like answering questions and just being so likable. And so if you ever get a chance to go to a Kirsten Johnson screening and panel, highly recommend it. She's great, and it's just a real heartwarming, and it can be quite funny. Like these reenactments that she does can be quite funny and silly, and it's great. And it also was not nominated by the Academy. Like
Unbelievable.
insane.
I know.
So one of my favorite movies of
Well,
that year. Yeah.
I do wonder how large, I'm gonna have to like research that, how large that branch is.
Ugh.
Like for the costume drama branch, that's one of the smallest branches in the Academy. So you are going to see a couple of people like always pop up because that's such a
Yeah.
small branch.
It's true. I
But I
mean, the
wonder if the
costumes,
documentary is,
like
one of the
the
lower,
same women keep getting nominated over and over
the most
again.
esteemed, like because they've been around
Like,
forever. But yeah, I mean,
Colleen
there are some
Atwood
who,
and Jacqueline
yeah.
Duran and
Yeah. Well, I love Colleen Atwood,
I
and
mean,
she
they're
hasn't been
great.
nominated for a couple of years. So,
They're
but
great, but yeah, they do tend to to get a lot of the love.
Yeah, they do, because it's so small. It's like 300 plus like members.
Mm,
So I do wonder what with the documentary. I would assume it was slightly larger, but it might be one of the
mm.
smaller branches of the Academy.
Yeah, they're a joke. But what do you have next?
I have a lovely little movie from what year was this? 2012, starring Maggie Smith, which I had to make sure that I didn't have every single movie with Maggie Smith in it for this. It's
Because we
called
were we were talking
Quartet.
that
Yeah,
Maggie Smith has played an old woman for like the last 40 years.
totally. And I
Really, I mean,
am
you go back to Hook in the 90s,
completely
she
fine
looked
with
like
it.
she was really,
May
really
Maggie
old.
Smith live, many years, many more years. But yeah, it's called Quartet. It's actually directed by Dustin Hoffman, but it's based on a play, and it stars Maggie Smith, Michael Gambon. There's Connolly in it, Pauline Collins, like a whole bunch of like people in it. It's basically a retirement home for retired musicians, opera singers, uh, pianists, whatever. So so
Yeah.
everybody basically knows everybody from professionally in this retirement home. There's lost loves, there's rivalries that are still going on. And so Maggie Smith is newly arrived, and she's her ex is there, and so there's this drama about that. But it's all happening with they throw a concert together annually where they perform the residents to raise money for the retirement home to keep it going.
Yeah.
And they're trying to get the quartet back together to sing, and there's rekindle love, and it's a very, very sweet.
What's this one called
It's
again?
Quartet.
Oh,
I think you can watch it on the Roku channel. It used to be on Netflix. I don't know if it's still on there, but it's a very sweet. It's not that long. It moves at a pace. But it's just like these they're retired, but they still have a life, and they still have like old wounds that they have to repair. Everybody's dignified. What the best part too is that the majority of the cast, like all the residents of this place, are actual real life musicians and opera singers. So when you're seeing them play instruments and when you're seeing them sing, it's really them, because this was their life. So it's populated with like British thespians of all, walks of life. And it's Michael Gambon is so funny in this movie. He's so eccentric, putting together this this talent show. In essence, it's a talent show. Oh, but it's lovely, and Maggie Smith is lovely in it. She really is. Um, very sweet.
well,
It's like a
yeah,
comfy blanket, like
yeah.
your
I have to
favorite comfy blanket.
check that out. I have not.
Yeah.
I
I
haven't
think
seen
it
that.
went under the radar. It's not like one of Maggie Smith's like better known older
Hmm.
like movies, because she's got like Ladies in Lavender, like Lady in the Van,
Yeah.
Lady in the Apartment, a whole bunch of stuff. But
So she was 53 when she was playing the grandma in Hook.
yeah.
53. It's kind of
She's
crazy.
long lived, bless her.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, my next one is a movie that left me an emotional wreck. This movie, but it's so good. It's The Farewell from 2019. This stars Aquafina, but it's not a silly role. She plays this woman who uh, they 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 find out that her grandmother is passing, but they don't. It's like the tradition in China that they don't tell the grandma that
Ridiculous.
they've
Yeah,
gotten
that
this
they don't tell them that
diagnosis.
they're dying. Yeah.
Yeah, and so they basically like have this party to kind of everybody get a chance to say goodbye. But it's like this wedding. It's like supposedly a wedding, but it's really just a chance for everybody to say goodbye. And at the ending of this movie, because the grandma is sitting there waving goodbye, and that's my grandma used to do that, and I lost her in 2019. This movie came out in 2019,
Yeah. It
and
hits close.
oh yeah, and there's not a I mean, obviously in retrospect, I'm glad that both of my grandmas, I lost them both in 2019, and I am glad that neither of them had to face COVID or deal with any of that.
Yeah.
So, it was a tender mercy in the end, but it's still, there's not a day that goes by that I don't miss my grandma, and that I wish I could talk to her, and that movie just really captures that feeling of just, because the thing about grandmas and the thing about grandparents is that they don't have the burden of being a parent and teaching, guiding, and they are in the best of situations. They are there to just love. They're just there to just love you. So they're like the one person in your life, ideally, who is just your biggest cheerleader, is just loves you. And so I will always have a very special place in my heart for my grandparents, and especially my grandfather on my mom's side and my grandma on my dad's side. They really truly were my best friends. So it's hard for me to talk about.
It's hard. I know it's hard.
It makes me emotional because I miss them so much.
I know.
It's one of those things that if I ever was an actress and needed to cry on, I would just
think of absolutely.
I miss them so much. But anyway, this movie really captured that, and the relationship between grandma and a granddaughter, and
it got no Oscar love.
I will never understand how at least the grandma didn't get nominated for supporting.
I know.
In screenplay. It was so good. Bizarre.
It is.
But anyway, it's a great little film. You should check it out if you haven't seen it. It's on Canopy. So if you have the library app, you can watch it for free. What do you have next?
I have Book Club, which this movie has spawned so many, like 4 women of a certain age movies to come forward, like 80 for Brady and all those others, and a sequel. But the first Book Club, this movie surprised me. I didn't think it was going to be that good. It's got Diane Keaton, Jane Fonda,
Andy Garcia. Oh my god,
Andy Garcia, like he can still get it. Candice Bergen, Mary Steenburgen, Craig T. Nelson, even Don Johnson. Like I could go on.
Yeah.
But it's like these women of all, various ages. They're married, they're widowed. Diane Keaton is newly widowed, and her kids are horrible. Like, mommy should go to an old folks home. Like, she's just living her life. I'm like, why? Okay, your father died, but I'm still vibrant. I'm still, she's fixing stuff in her house, and they're like, oh, you can't do that, Mom. You gotta go to an old folks home. And she's like, excuse me? And I love how Candice Bergen, she's a judge, she's divorced, she's got her children are all grown, and she's dating, and her internet profile when she accidentally takes the picture. And she was like, yeah. And Jane Fonda's ridiculous in her wardrobe, but that's her character, always presenting younger than she is. But like Candice Bergman is more of the slut than Jane Fonda is in this movie. If you're gonna
they have like a really nice chemistry together.
If you're going to put like stereotypes on the women, I should say, let me find that. But
I think that was 2000. I think that was 2018 that movie came out, and
I believe so.
Yeah, and I'm like, this was the year of Andy Garcia. Ooh,
oh yeah,
because there was that in Mamma Mia too.
Oh yeah, but like just the laugh I got when the cops like this car is shaking and it's Candice Bergen in the back like get it, and I was like you go you go girl, you make it rock, and it's so funny because she gets in the same type of trouble in the sequel, which is actually very charming. And if you want to go on vacation to Italy, watch the sequel.
Yeah, because
book club movies are better than what you would think, what you expect them to.
Because the last 2 years, everything's been in Italy. They must have done something post-pandemic. Everyone wants to film in Italy, whether it's Fast and Furious, Book Club, even Hallmark. Like everybody wants to be in Italy.
It's beautiful.
Well, my next one, it might go up, but I was trying to take in recency bias, but I have Thelma in number 8 for me.
I have it slightly higher.
Okay. Yeah. This is really, really a cute, funny little movie about this woman. She gets kind of scammed out of this money. She thinks that somebody's abducted her grandson. This is
No,
a
that he's in
scam.
jail.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
she sends this money. So then her and Richard Roundtree go on this quest to be like Tom Cruise Mission Impossible and get the money back. And it's really cute and funny. And I really liked all of the family roles in this. I really liked her grandson, Fred Heckinger, I think it's called, and then Parker Posey, Clark Gregg playing her
ridiculous
son and daughter-in-law, I believe.
No, it's her daughter.
And you have Malcolm McDowell playing the villain. I mean, you do have to kind of suspend disbelief at certain points. It gets very silly, but I didn't care. It's sweet enough and funny enough, and I liked the relationship between grandson and grandma. Yeah. It's her first leading role she's ever had. She's 92 of them.
Yeah. Like she's the center of this, and rightfully so. She's so delightful, so good.
Yeah.
And I believe that the director and the writer wrote this as an inspiration from his own grandmother and the relationship they had together. Yeah. But it's such a lovely, because she's so supportive of her grandson who's going through like not a great moment in time. Yeah. And I do think that her daughter and her son-in-law, they are concerned, but they're not overbearingly concerned.
Yeah, they feel pretty real for this.
They feel pretty real as like worrying about an older.
Like you would be worried if your grandma or mother, if they just went away, like it was gone. Like you would be very concerned.
Yeah, totally. It's a horrible way how she got scammed, and that's a real scam that people are doing. But I just loved when June Squibb was like, nah, I'm going to get my money back. She doesn't really think it through, but she's like, I'm getting it back.
And she's going to be like Mission Impossible.
I know. And she steals Scooter. He is so great in this movie too.
Yeah, I'm so glad this got to be his last film.
Yeah, so great. What a great send-off for the both of them. And they're like, and
she's still with us, but
no, I'm sorry. For him, yes.
Yeah.
So we must live forever. We must protect her at all costs.
So what do you have next?
I have the Best Exotic Marigold Hotel, which has Judi Dench and Maggie Smith and a whole bunch of other famous British people. I like this one better than the sequel, but the sequel is actually very good as well, just on a different level. But this is very charming. All these British people, they come, they're advertising like, come retire in India, and they go to this hotel. They think it's going to be this great retirement home, and it's not, and how they help him make it a great place. And Maggie Smith is like in a wheelchair in this movie. And it's kind of terrible because she spent her whole life as like a nanny and a maid, and then she gets brushed off in retirement. She doesn't really have anybody, so she's cranky a bit in it. And but the way she finds life again and helping him run this hotel, and like you ship up and shape up, and everybody sort of has their second sort of a reawakening, and Judi Dench is like, she's widowed, and she goes on a whim and she finds love again, and it's so sweet, it's love in older age.
Did you just, because you were the one who had this idea for this list, did you just rewatch this like fairly recently?
No, I didn't. This just popped up. I was thinking of my mom.
Oh yeah,
because like the anniversary of her death was this month. And then I was thinking of my mom, and I'm like, oh, my mom would have been well into her 80s if she was alive. And I was like, I probably would have wrapped her up in saran wrap everywhere we go, especially during COVID. She would have hated me, by the way, Rachel. I probably would have let her out of the house. But and I just thought it was like, oh man, we used to love watching these older movies together. So that's what made me think about it.
Yeah.
So
I love that. Well, my next one is a movie that is kind of forgotten from Disney, believe it or not. It's called The Straight Story, and this is by director David Lynch. Another random part about it, you wouldn't expect David Lynch to make this like very sweet, simple movie. He's usually more like, more sci-fi or like just a little more trippy. But anyway, it stars Richard Farnsworth, who people will know from Anne of Green Gables, a lot of people at least. and he plays this man who decides to go and see his brother, but the only way that he has to get there is to take his John Deere tractor and ride it to his brother. And it's just a lovely little movie. Sweet.
I don't think I haven't seen this one, no.
You've never seen The Straight Story, huh?
No, I've never seen it. I saw it pop up and I was like, I don't know what this is. I
Oh,
guess
yeah.
it has flown so much under radar. You know?
Yeah. Oh, you would love it. It's so
Yeah,
good.
I'm sure I would.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's probably on Hulu or Disney Plus or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's a really well, I think he got nominated for Best Actor for this movie, and rightfully so. So it's definitely one you would never expect from David Lynch. You would never expect, but
Definitely.
and from Disney.
Definitely.
But it's really, really, really good. So what you have next?
This is where I have Thelma.
Mm-hmm.
And June Squibb Forever. It's a queen,
Yeah.
delightful movie, a delightful caper. And
Mhm.
Malcolm McDowell, like he's such a sorry villain. Like
Yeah. Yeah. Like after I saw it, I was just like, I wish I could call my grandma.
Oh, I
wish
know. It was so
it just made me
delightful.
want to call grandma.
I
If you
hope
have
that
grandmas, call them.
yes. And I hope
Call
people
them.
check this out because I watched it in it was a secret movie. It was a part of the AMC Screen Unscreen movie
Mm,
because I wouldn't have I wouldn't have even known it was out in the theaters had it not been for that because
I'm
I felt
glad.
like this movie got no,
Yeah.
you know.
I'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's Baker Bookhouse Publishing and author Liz Johnson and the new book, Meddling with Mistletoe. Get into the holiday spirit with Meddling with Mistletoe, a festive novel of baking, matchmaking, and Christmas cheer by Liz Johnson. Whitney Garrett and Daniel Franklin find themselves back at the Red Door Inn at Christmas time. Both have bright futures ahead and don't expect to stay on Prince Edward Island for good. But a little holiday spirit, Christmas pie, and meddlesome matchmaking might just change their plans. Purchase Meddling with Mistletoe for 30% off and free shipping at bakerbookhouse.com. That's 30% off and free shipping at bakerbookhouse.com. My number 6 is a movie that I like that I know a lot of people don't like, but I have Gran Torino at number 6. I really just love Clint Eastwood in this movie. I have one grandfather who I loved and adored, and then I had the other grandfather who was challenging, a curmudgeon, and I guess watching this movie, it's nice to sort of be able to laugh at this kind of behavior, because that's the way he was, and the whole bond between him and his neighbors is really actually quite sweet. And get off my lawn, So I really like it. And
Yeah.
that's
Oh,
what I have to say.
grandfathers.
Yeah.
I just popped up a memory too of my grandfather when he lived in Canada and he used to visit my grandmother at the hospital because when she had her stroke, she had this, she lived there, and the cops were like, you can't drive anymore because of your age. So he was like, I will take a bicycle, but he's like, it's very tiring going on a bicycle. So he put a motor on his bicycle, and it essentially became a moped, and the cops pulled him over going, this is illegal. And he's like, what am I supposed to pedal there? I can't drive. I can't drive a moped. He did it anyway, regardless.
Yeah. I wrote in my letterbox, I said, anyone who has had a grumpy old man in their life will love this movie. Get off my lawn.
Yeah, oh, totally. Totally.
So
yeah, and Clint Eastwood is actually very good in this movie. It's like,
yeah, no, he really is.
Yeah.
And some of the other acting with the Loasians isn't the strongest, but I don't care. It works for the story, and I just think the script is really funny, and so I think it's about probably as good as this kind of movie. The grumpy curmudgeon.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's about as good as this kind of movie could be done.
Totally.
Yeah. So what do you have next?
I have this is a Netflix movie, and it's called Our Souls at Night, and it stars Robert Redford and Jane Fonda. Basically, it's a little weird, but they are neighbors. They've been neighbors for quite a long time, and they both have lost their spouses. And Jane Fonda comes over one day and she's like, "How's everything going? Do you have trouble sleeping at night?" And so essentially, they do have trouble sleeping at night because they've been, they're not used to being alone. So they sort of make this pact where they will sleep next to each other. And it's platonic, there's nothing going on, but eventually it does build up into a love story. And there's a lot of other stuff going, like Jane Fonda. She's still putting her son's going through a lot of stuff. So she's like, I have to like be a good mother and be there for my son because I wasn't always. And he's got to deal with a lot of stuff too because he was a teacher who left his first wife and had an affair and people still remember that. So it's dealing with a lot of past mistakes and this beautiful love story along with can we make it work with all this stuff in the middle, with Jane Fonda and what her son is going through. And I think it's delightful. But I think the both of them are very sweet together and it's a delightful film. And I don't think anybody knows it exists because it's
Yeah, I've
lost in the
never heard of it.
Netflix shovel. Because this movie isn't recent. It's from 2017.
Mhm. Yeah,
So
I've
I
never
think
heard of that one.
it's like
No.
search Netflix, it's still on there. I believe it's based on a book. They are very good together. And I don't know if Jane Fonda or Robert Redford ever, oh no, they did, but they did appear on the screen together. But this is like, they still had that spark,
Uh-huh.
like all
That's
these years
cool.
later, because it's
Yeah.
been many years since they've been in a movie together.
Yeah. Well, for my next one, I take back what I said about Grant Tuner being the best Grumpy Man movie because my next one is another Grumpy Man movie that's very good. It's called A Man Called Ove, and this is the Swedish original adaptation of this book.
Hmm.
Friedrich Bachmann is probably my favorite novelist working today. Like he is so good. I have loved every single thing I've read from him. A Man Called Ove, I absolutely loved. I loved Anxious People. That's probably my favorite of his. It is an absolutely beautiful book with the characters and the story and then he has one letters I wrote for my grandmother, something like that.
Hmm.
Anyway, everything I've ever read from him has been absolutely beautiful and like just this great mixture of comedy and heart and great characters. I just love his writing. So they're starting with an absolutely wonderful book and then they have a great performance and it's simple. It's about this old man who lives in this apartment and he's very frustrated with his neighbors who it's like a condo kind of a thing and he's very frustrated with his neighbors because they just can't do things right and he ends up meeting with this immigrant family and and having a surprising bond with this immigrant family and you kind of learn about his wife and his grief and his loss and can be quite triggering movie because he basically wants to commit suicide and tries multiple times through the film. So if that's like a hard thing, it's not like taken lightly by the film, but anyway, that is there if that's something that you don't want to watch. By him finally kind of understanding that he has some value and valuing his neighbors, and it's just and then they remade it and called it A Man Called Otto with Tom Hanks, which was better than I expected it to be. Because I was thinking that's such a weird casting because Tom Hanks is the last person I think of when I think of curmudgeon. You know,
Right.
I just don't think of him as being this grumpy guy. But it was pretty good. Like it was pretty good. I liked it, but I would still pick the original over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never seen both. I haven't seen the remake or the
Mm,
original. Yeah.
yeah. But I would just recommend reading the book and then watching either of the movies, but especially the Swedish one. And I think let's see, where can you watch this?
I think the
Yeah,
remake
it's
is an
all over the
Apple movie,
place.
right? Yeah.
It's all over the Canopy, Tubi,
Hmm.
all over. So don't be afraid of subtitles. Check it out. It's a sweet
Yes.
little
Embrace
movie.
the subtitle.
Hmm. And then you can watch the Tom Hanks one if you want.
That's an Apple movie, right? The Tom Hanks one?
Um,
I think so.
I don't know. Oh, I don't know. It's fine. It's
It's
cute,
fine.
but I just the first one is better. So what do you have next?
This is where I have Cocoon,
Mm,
classic from my childhood. Bunch of
yeah.
senior citizens like, we gonna swim in this pool. I don't care if they tell us no.
Yeah.
And of course, it's got alien cocoons in it, and they start to feel younger and live life, which exasperates many folks. But it's so charming. It's so, I don't know. I mean, there's so many famous people that were like super famous back in the day in this movie, who are older, obviously,
Uh,
but when this movie came out in the 80s, but like Maureen Stapleton and boy, I think Wilfred Brimley's in this, and Wilfred
yeah.
Brimley always looked old, even when he was 30.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's a lot
I
of.
think he was in his 50s when he
Yeah, I
made.
think he was playing older than what he
Oh
was
yeah.
in this
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah,
It's a cute
it's
film.
delightful. It's
Hmm.
delightful, yeah.
Well, my number four is maybe one people wouldn't think of because the lead character is a little girl, but I still count it. I have Pollyanna at number four. This is
I
a
didn't think
movie.
about this one. Yeah.
Yeah, this is a movie that I think is easily dismissed as being like trite and silly, but I actually really love it. And one of my favorite parts is her interactions with Mrs. Snow, who when we first meet her, she's played by Agnes Moorehead, and
Yeah.
when we first meet Mrs. Snow, she's selecting her coffin from the mortuary guy, mortician. And she's just convinced that she's going to die, and that's it. And Pollyanna is horrified by this. That she says, "You're not going to die," and she at one point she just chews her out
Yeah.
about this. That you stop worrying about dying and start living, and it's beautiful. And there's so many things I love about this movie. I just love the whole idea of like somebody that is positive and the difference that makes on this like entire town. And I also just love Carl Madden in this. I think it's an underrated performance, but he's this fire and brimstone pastor, and he's trying to strike some fear into the heart of the parishioners. And she tells him about the glad text, and that her father uh, used to teach from. And I think that's what gives the story a little bit of weight beyond just it being this like happy go lucky story, is that she's an orphan. She's had to deal with a lot of really hard stuff, and she's come out of it. And the difference that it makes in this pastor's life when he
Yeah.
realizes that he needs to be that the gospel of Jesus is actually a gospel of joy, and what a difference it makes in his like he goes through this repentance journey, and it's absolutely beautiful, and his performance is so good. And Haley Mills is great in it. I love Jane Wyman as her aunt. I don't I just love this movie so much.
Is
And
this your favorite version of this story? Like your favorite iteration? Because they've done this quite a few times.
yeah, I don't know if I've even seen any other. This is just the one that I know. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the one with Haley Mills, I think, is the most recognizable one. Because I know they've done a few TV movies.
Oh, yeah. But I love that Carl Malden
Yeah,
performance.
he's
I
great in
think it
it.
is so good. And I don't know, like I said, I think it's just one of those movies because there's also not only is there Mrs. Snow, but there's also the grumpy old man
Hmm.
that ends up adopting the little boy,
Yeah.
and he's kind of got it in the prisms and everything, and so he kind of finds a new lease on life as well as her aunt. So there's quite a few characters that kind of come to terms with their mortality, and then when she has the accident and everything kind of comes to fruition. I just love this movie, and I think it's one of those ones that's kind of easily dismissed as just being this like I think it's kind of easily dismissed, sort of like Hallmark movies kind of are.
Yeah.
That, oh, these are just fluffy, it's light, but there's a lot going on here in this movie. and has a lot to say and great performances. And I really do love it. I really do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it would probably be up there when and if we do a Disney live action ranking, not the remakes, but just live action.
Yeah.
This would be probably in my top 5. I really do love it. What do you have next?
I have Grumpy Old Men, and I guess
Mhm.
we could throw in Grumpy or Old Men too, because they're both good movies. But
Yeah.
it's like Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau, and they're the odd couple from the original movie. They're reunited again, and they've had a lifelong feud, and they're neighbors. And of course, Anne Margaret moves to town, and they're feuding over her as well. It's delightful. Burgess Meredith plays Walter Matthau. No, Jack Lemmon's father. And Meredith is very famous for being the Penguin on the Batman 60 show and the Rocky movies, and then some. But it's so delightful, the chemistry that these two lifelong friends have, and just the awful things they do to each other since they've been children in the feud. And like, will it finally come to an end? And if you watch the sequel, it's not exactly the same thing, but Sophia Loren is there, and she is just smoking hot in Grumpy Old Men. But
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, if you watch it, it's just for Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau are just so good together. Just
Yeah.
the rapport, the way they bounce things off, and they're neighbors. They're feuding, but they somehow happen to have been neighbors their whole entire life. And I think it's his son and his daughter, right, that fall in love.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh,
And
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, so
Mhm.
there's that aspect too. They were like, no, how dare you, traitor, And I think
Mhm.
they're feuding over the dumbest thing too. It's very funny.
Yeah.
Very funny.
Well, my next one is definitely not funny.
Ugh.
I have 45 years as
Oh,
my next
Rachel.
one.
And that's your number 2?
3.
3. Okay.
3.
I have this. I will just say this is my number 1
It's
because
so
it's so
good.
close.
Andrew
Yeah.
Haigh is such a wonderful director. I will be first in line to anything that he does. One of my favorite movies of recent memory is Lean on Pete that he directed. I
Yeah.
absolutely just love that movie. The Weekend. He last year did All of Us Strangers, which I had more mixed feelings, but it was still very well made. And he has so much heart and humanity to his characters and his storytelling. And here you have Charlotte Rampling as this woman who kind of discovers that her husband has not been honest with her all these years. They've been married for 45 years. She kind of covers something about his past that kind of changes everything and the journey that he goes on, that she goes
Oh,
on.
it's
Whew.
this movie has haunted me since I've seen it.
Yeah, me too.
It's actually like
I
46
bawled.
years. Yeah, because they're planning their 45th anniversary, but it's like a
Mhm.
year later because the husband had like a heart a heart problem.
That's
So
true.
and so she's like, they don't have any children together. It's just the two of them and their friends, their circle of friends. And when she finds, I don't want to give it away because everybody should watch this movie. It's fantastic and it haunts you. But like when she finds out that that she never really knew her husband, essentially, it's
Mhm.
like she sees him in a completely new life. And there is a part at the end of the movie, and she's struggling with how she feels and how she can move on. I mean, it's a lifetime with this man. I'm a woman of a certain age. I spent a lifetime with this man. I don't have any
Mhm.
children. I don't have any like family. Like, this is it. And when he's giving this beautiful speech at that party, like, oh, my best friend, my wife, and you just see on her face, like, it will never be the same, and just like the emotions and the fact that she lost this Oscar. I can't believe it. I really
Yeah.
thought she deserved to. I think she lost to Brie Larson, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
maybe. Yeah, something
so
like that. I
it's
I
just
agree. She was
so
absolutely
good.
fantastic. And she really
And she
reminded me a
doesn't
lot of
go
my
overboard with her reaction. It's like a
Mhm.
shock to her,
Mhm.
and it's like, I'll tell you, I don't know how I would react if I found out this secret that this man, because also there's more to the secret. Like, wait a minute, what do you mean this happened? And
Yeah.
Isn't that a little suspicious? It's like, not to give away too much of it, but there is like, this is life shattering. I don't know what I would do. I don't.
No.
And that's the whole thing. And she doesn't overblow it. She's like contemplative and like, what is going on here? And it's devastating. This movie has haunted me since I've seen it. It's incredible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with everything you said.
Yeah.
Her performance really did remind me a lot of my grandma that I was so close to.
Yeah.
And she was the one married to the curmudgeon. There's just a lot of thematic kind of similarities. And it is a beautiful movie. People that think that the movies have lost their humanity and ability to tell personal stories. First of all, you don't see enough movies, and second of all, you should watch this movie.
Oh,
Anything
absolutely.
Andrew Haig has done.
Oh my gosh.
His movies are so good. Yeah.
So you don't expect it. Like when this, like you're like, okay, I'm gonna watch this movie, and I was like, I knew nothing about it going in, and I was like, okay, all right. So he nearly died. It's very touching. And then when that drops, you're like, excuse me.
Yeah.
And the sad thing is that this happens more often than not. Sometimes you are married or know someone for a lifetime, but you don't really know them. Like there's such an important event in one's life that you're like, excuse me, that, or you choose to ignore it. And that's what she has to live with. Do I choose to accept it and ignore it and just think of the 45 years we did have together, of all these great years we did have together? Or do I just sit here and go, it was all lies, It's
or maybe just like accept kind of a middle ground.
Yeah.
Like it's not, there's lots of things that she's contemplating and deciding.
The last shot of her, especially in the movie, is like, which way she's going to live, and it's not happy, but it's like, it's brutal, but it haunts me still. But sometimes I just wake up during the day and like, I wonder how Charlotte Ramsey like,
it's so good.
The haunting performance.
What do you have next? What do you have for your two? So this year
I have Whatever Happened to Baby Jane.
Oh,
with Betty Davis and Joan Crawford. It is it is a camp classic. It is a thriller, and many people have coined it hag. What do they call that? Hag? No, I can't remember. Hag exploitation.
Oh, okay.
Hagsploitation, because it really started. Like Betty Davis was like, no, I'm going to put on this makeup. I'm going to look messed up. And, of course, these two women feuded. They did not like each other. But they did this movie together. And it was a big hit. They both got, Betty Davis got nominated for an Oscar for this. And even the whole Oscar race. If you've ever watched Feud, Betty and Joan, it is based on the making of this movie. It is not. Listen, they take a lot of liberties with that, and this is why I know Olivia de Havilland sued them for her portrayal of that. Ryan Murphy, I was like, the minute I saw that, I was like, yeah, she's going to sue. But anyway, it is quite interesting, the whole making of this. And both of these stars needed it in their careers because, this is the 60s and they were big stars and they're not getting enough pictures. But they play sisters. Joan Crawford is in a wheelchair, and Betty Davis is taking care of her. Betty Davis was a huge child star that did not exactly cross into adulthood. And Joan Crawford then became the star as an adult. So they're both actresses and there's twists and turns of how she ended up in a wheelchair and what the sisters have done to each other through their lives, and Betty Davis slowly losing her mind in this, and it's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful, and they were supposed to do oh gosh, what's that movie? They were supposed to do another sort of and now I can't remember the name of that movie. They were supposed to do another thriller together, but Joan Crawford got fired from that movie. I mean, there's so much in the feud and what happened in the making of this set. I just think that rivalry really comes across in the film.
Yeah.
And it's just a really wonderful watch. And whether you think it's a camp classic or not, it's both those women give really great performances, and both those women, lived a life. Oh, it was Hush Hush Sweet Charlotte that they were going to pair them again. And then I mean, it's off a tangent, but Joan Crawford was like, I'm married to a Pepsi guy, so no Coke machines here. They all got to be Pepsi machines. And she didn't show up for work. And Betty Davis was like, I told you I'm so more professional than she. Eventually, she got fired, and Betty was like, call my BFF, Olivia de Havilland. She'll come in here and play Joan Crawford's role. Go see Hush Hush Sweet Charlotte 2. Crazy thriller. Wonderful.
Cool.
But yeah, there's just something about you never expected these women who like their feud started in such a stupid way to like to be on screen together, and you're like, finally, I'm living my I'm living my dreams.
Yeah.
It must have been spectacular to see when it first came out with these two living legends.
Yeah. The cool, crisp days of fall are calling. Fuel up for them with Factor's no prep, no mess meals. Meet your wellness goals in time to go back to school thanks to the menu of chef-crafted meals with options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. So no matter how busy you are, you'll always have time to enjoy nutritious, great tasting meals. Make today the day you kickstart a new healthy routine. What are you waiting for? With 35 different meals and more than 60 add-ons to choose from every week, you'll always have new flavors to explore. Crush your wellness goals this month with dietitian-approved meals and ingredients that you can trust. Make your day delicious from breakfast to dessert. Stay fueled with easy, nutritious options. Treat yourself to restaurant-quality meals that feature premium ingredients like filet mignon, shrimp, and blackened salmon. Keep kitchen time to a minimum. Factor meals are ready in 2 minutes. No shopping, prepping, cooking, or cleaning up. Enjoy effortless support for your lifestyle. Choose from 6 menu preferences to help you manage calories, maximize protein intake, avoid meat, or simply eat well balanced. Head to factormeals.com/hallmarkies50. Use the code hallmarkies50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That's code hallmarkies50 at factormeals.com/hallmarkies50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. My number 2 does actually have some thriller elements to it. It's a very unique movie. It's so good. It's called The Father.
I have not seen this one.
Oh, really? Yeah.
I just didn't want to get bummed out, I think, because I heard it was a bummer, and I was like, ooh, but I do love Anthony Hopkins. So.
It is a little bit of a bummer, but there is humanity to it. So what's so different about it is that it is so he plays this man who has Alzheimer's, and what's unique about this movie is that he plays a man who has Alzheimer's, and everything is filmed as from his perspective, right? And so 1 second it'll be Olivia Colman playing his daughter, and then the next second it will be a younger woman playing his daughter, and he has like conversations with them, and you're like, which one is actually his daughter? Same thing with son-in-law.
Yeah.
And what's also true is that the set actually changes depending on which version he's seen. So all of a sudden it'll be a different kitchen, or it'll be a different backdrop, things like that. And you can feel kind of panicked. You get his sense of anxiety, his frustration. It is a absolutely incredible performance. I know that people were upset that Chadwick Boseman didn't win.
Poor Anthony Hopkins had to apologize for winning an Oscar.
I mean, it was so ridiculous the way they had it staged. They had it set up so that
that did no one any favors.
Yeah, the best actor, and they didn't even let Anthony Hopkins record and accept
No,
it.
because he wanted to, just in case. And the thing is, from the trailer of that movie, I knew that he was going to give, like, I was like, he's giving a great performance here. So I didn't even begrudge him like the nomination or the win, but I just think because Chadwick Boseman had died and he had won some previous other awards, and making that the last award of the night. I mean, it was a terrible production. It was so
dumb.
They did no favors to anyone
and
with that decision.
Like, to not allow a person in their 90s to record an acceptance speech.
Yeah,
that
because it was
lived in
during the
England
COVID. Yeah,
during COVID
because
was
everybody
so
went to.
stupid.
I believe the British actors went to a theater.
Mm-hmm.
Because I remember Olivia Colman's like sitting there, like, because she was nominated as well for this movie. But they went to a theater and he couldn't make it. And he was like, can I just like pre-record something just in case? And I'm
Yeah.
sure he wanted it because he hasn't won or been nominated in like decades, at that point, Anthony. I mean, I think more people remember this movie for that than anything else.
Mm.
And it was just,
I said at the time, I said, this was hard to watch because the idea of dementia is so scary, both
so
for our
scary.
loved
It
ones
is.
and ourselves, but it was very well done. The acting was particularly good. It leaves a lot ambiguous, which I like, but will probably
Yeah.
frustrate some.
Yeah.
So they don't like explain, okay, this is the
Yeah.
delusion, this is the kind of leave it to you to kind of decide what's going on. And
This is based on a play, correct?
I think so. Yeah.
And I think the follow-up was The Son, right, with Hugh Jackman. I have never seen that one either.
That one was bad. But this one is really, really good and very well directed, very well acted. So I think people should check it out. But it can be a tough watch at times. I can understand that.
I've been meaning to check this out, but I'm like, do I want to get that bummed? Because somebody told me it's a bummer. And I was like, I think I didn't want to watch that much things that would bum me out, like during COVID, during lockdown, because we were still stuck inside our houses. And then I've just never gotten to.
But there is like there's things that are depressing that have like no humanity to them.
Yeah.
And then there's things like this where it has enough that I think it's not something I'd want to watch like all the time, but
it's true. It's like there's so much stuff that I want to catch up on. I was like, I don't have enough hours in a day.
And there's things that are really interesting about the filmmaking too. So even if you're kind of sad, you can be like, oh, look that's a different kitchen.
Right.
Or that's so you can
I've got to watch this one. Yeah.
Enjoy it that way. But you already said your number one, 45 years. So good. My number one is Up. It's one of my favorite movies.
Yeah.
Period. I absolutely love it. I love Carl as a character. I love his journey of forgiveness and repentance. I don't know, a lot of people think the dogs are annoying, but I think they're fun. I enjoy them. And what's interesting is they were originally going to have Kevin's eggs be like a fountain of youth kind of thing. That's why
I think I remember reading that.
That's why Christopher Plummer's character is the same age as Carl, which wouldn't really make sense. But it just took up too much time. So they were like, you know what? They'll forgive us that plot hole. And they're absolutely right.
We did.
They did. Yeah. So I love the journey that Carl goes on, like I said, of realizing that Ellie really did love him all along, and that he can start a whole new adventure.
Yeah,
really great. I love this movie so much. When I purchased my house, I'd always had a dream of having like an elaborate fancy cake. Because I figured I'm never gonna I probably won't get married, so
might as well have it for this, right?
So when I bought my house, it was right around my birthday. My birthday's on the 23rd of January. My house closed on the 30th, so it was right around there. So I had a birthday party / housewarming, whatever party, and I had a cake made, an Up themed cake with a house on the top and everything, and it was really fun. It's this great memory, and I love the music, I love the animation, I love the whimsy of it.
Is this your favorite Pixar? If you were to like pick your favorite
well, it's
Pixar.
either this, like it's a 3-way battle between this, the original Inside Out, and the original Toy Story. Those are my 3 favorite.
I think I have a 3-way tie of this one, WALL-E. I love WALL-E, and then also Toy Story. Yeah.
Toy Story, I think, is like, can you say Toy Story is underrated because it's one of the most praised films ever? But I just think it's just as far as the script, I think is one of the finest scripts ever made. It is so good. When they finally get you to that point where he says, "You are a toy." You're a child's plaything. You are an action figure.
I love that world too. Like I love all the the Christmas special that they had in the Halloween special. I even laugh about that. I do love the Toy Story universe. And I think they've surprisingly been lucky that they haven't run that to the ground with all the sequels. But
yeah, we'll see about 5.
oh
I
yeah,
think
because
all of
there's
us.
a Toy Story 5 coming, right?
Yeah.
Oh boy.
I mean, they did kind of. I mean, the whole Lightyear thing was
Oh, that
bizarre.
doesn't
What were
count.
they thinking?
I
But
don't understand the marketing for that
it was
movie. It is
bizarre.
the
The whole
movie
idea, the
that
concept.
yeah, I think it was the movie. Wait, wasn't it the movie that he was
It,
watching?
yeah, it was bizarre. If it had just been generic spaceman movie, like it would have been like better.
Yeah.
But anything they tried to do at Toy Story was just confusing and bizarre, and it didn't make any sense that that was the movie that Andy watched. That he, like, it was so stupid.
I know.
But anyway, we'll see if they can do it with 5. But I do
But
love
Up is delightful.
I love Up so much, and
Great voice casting too. Like the great
mhm,
casting for that.
mhm. So there we go. We did it.
Yay!
Let us know what you think and what movies you would add to the list. Like I said, we'll put that short list in the description if you want to make your own ranking or your own list. What do you think of our picks? Make sure you check out the bonus picks for the patrons and become a patron. You won't regret it. It's really fun. And Terry, how can people follow you?
On Twitter. Flurry Heaven on Twitter. I almost forgot. Because I have a bonkers idea, Rachel. At the end of that, we did it. You ever watch Dora the Explorer at the end of the episode? Then she goes, "We did it." You should add that clipping at the end. First singing, we did it. I'm sorry. It's a day.
Yes. Yes. You can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all of our social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. So check that out. Also, make sure that you're following Hallmarkies Podcast, Hallmarkies Pod, for all things social media. And if you are listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. 5 stars. It really helps us a lot. It only takes a second of your time. Please, please, please. If you are listening on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. We appreciate that so much. Most of our viewers on YouTube are not subscribers. So if you're in that camp, please subscribe. It really helps the algorithm a lot. And check out the Patreon group, like we said, for bonus episodes and be a part of the Facebook group and more fun stuff. So please take a look at that. And then we have our merch store where you get all kinds of fun designs. So please take a look at that. And thanks so much, everybody. We'll talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.